I would like to welcome everyone to the 38th episode of Money Trees. Today I'm joined by a pioneer in the music NFT space, an incredible creative, producer, songwriter, and someone who's actively building community and spreading love through art. The Tide Walker himself is on the show. Welcome Cam Murdoch to Money Trees. How are you doing today, G?
Yo, yo, yo. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. How are you?
Yo, man, I am blessed and highly flavored. I literally got off a plane, I think like 65 minutes ago. Hopped in the car and got here, set up, excited to chop with you. So yeah, I'm loving life, man. Speaking of traveling, I saw that you were in LA. Are you back home or are you still out there?
Ah, man. Ever since I left LA, I wish that I was back there. I'm I'm back in Minneapolis for the time being, but me and LA will be seeing each other again soon.
Was that your first time ever going out there?
Yeah, that was my first time being on the West Coast, and yeah, it was a very eye-opening, inspiring, motivating experience for me.
So you said Minneapolis, and for me, I'm born and raised in New York, and the weather, I'm sure the weather's crazy here for you, but I remember my first time going out to California, I was just like, nah, y'all have this sun 340 days out of the year. This is insane. It's so inspiring. I feel like it's very easy for me to create in that environment. And yeah, I was in San Diego, tried San Fran, and then LA to me is it's just a whole other space, and the amount of people that you're able to run into on the daily reminds me of New York in that sense. It's very much different with how spread out it is and needing a car and all that. But I'm glad that your first trip out there went well, man. That's fire. What were you out there for?
So I went out there for the Smoking Grooves Music Festival and just kind of like tacked on about a week's worth of time to just vibe and chill and kind of explore. But I planned that trip before I got involved in a lot of Web3 stuff. And since then, like I just made, so many connections in this space that I ended up having a bunch of homies that were already out there that I like hadn't met in real life before. And so like getting to kick it with people that you've been vibing with on the internet for the first time and then like them not trying to kill or kidnap you is always love. So I yeah, man, I went out there and then I was like, this weather is perfect.
It's different, man. It's I know not every day, but damn near every day. It's wild.
Yeah, so I was looking at apartments like, yeah, I could live there.
See, my issue is the time zone. Like the problem is for me is, and I wake up early, but I feel like I'm so used to just East Coast time that when I lived out in LA, I would just end up behind. And I was waking up probably like 5:30 a.m. So that way by 6 a.m. LA time, I was ready for the normal workday in New York. And that was the main reason why I couldn't stay. I left after the pandemic and I don't see myself moving back. But I did just come from Florida, man, and it's a little crazy there politically, so I don't know if I could live there either, but it is beautiful. Yo, your birthday was yesterday. Happy belated. Hope that shit was fire. Did you do anything you want to share with the people?
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, my birthday was super chill, and this is gonna sound like really boring to some people, but I just kind of like vegged out and watched anime all day. Um, I am I am definitely prone to working on my birthday. So I was up super late or the night before listing my piece on Zora and it's kind of like doing little task like working on web design, just like stuff for me. Um, and then when I kind of woke up later that day, I called out of work and just chilled, watched One Piece all day. Um, I had a little space later in the evening um, with a lot of my friends in this Web3 space, and we just kind of like vibed out, talked a little bit about the music. Um, Yeah, actually, yeah, it went on for a while. Like it kind of turned into a late night Web3 version of Versus, which I think I'm gonna keep that going because there was some pure heat and just dope connections being made in that amount of time.
That is fucking fire. I love the idea of the Web3 verses. I love that. It's crazy. The expectations of the world behind birthdays, where some people go like full out, and some people tend to, like you said, you're prone to working on that. And I, for one, am more on the prone to working on it, where I'm like, oh, it's just another day. And I've started to get away from that and, finding these moments to celebrate. And celebrating looks different to everyone. And I'll tell you what you did for your birthday is how my New Year's was. It wasn't anime, but I vegged out, was chilling at my apartment. Probably the first New Year's I've ever spent like that, and I was just smoking, looking at fireworks out my window, and I was content. Like it felt good. I didn't have any FOMO. Didn't feel like I was missing anything, and it really served what I needed. So I'm glad that you were able to have that for your birthday, and then jump on Spaces and share some love with the homies. You mentioned that you had a piece that you just dropped. And let me back up. First of all, the Tidewalker is a fire nickname, like a fire nickname. So I love that. And the piece that you're mentioning is the first piece from Surf Noir Volume 1, and that piece is called Catching Waves. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about and what Surf Noir is?
Yeah, for sure. So Surf Noir is mm, it's a lot. So I'll start with what is Future Surf. Future Surf is the name for the sound, the visual aesthetic, and just the general like way of life and way of thinking that I'm creating within, right? So I, in my long journey as a musician, have dabbled in so many different sounds and styles, and like I kind of stumbled upon, I think it was like 2019 or maybe 2020. The years run together with this Panasonic that we've been dealing with, but like the I stumbled upon a connection point with the music that I was creating, and also like my interest as a listener. So I was listening to a lot of various types of African music. I was listening to um, like a lot of city pop, listening to like a lot of Okinawan soul music, and listening to like Tropicalia music, and I was really noticing uh, connection points between like the styles of different cultures across the world. Um, and that was like, yo, you guys have never met in some of these circumstances. Like some of the genres were before the internet even happened. So it was like, you never met, but it's almost as if you were having a conversation through your different musical movements and doing some of the same things for similar reasons. And I, as somebody who was born in the Midwest, um, that fantasized about being on the coast, and then like I used to see the ocean as like just this endless portal of opportunity. When I finally moved to the coast and lived in Virginia, I kind of came to see like, all right, well, once you get to the coast, the ocean becomes somewhat of a hurdle or a barrier for you. It's like if you're not crossing it, you might feel stuck in a sense. And I just observed that from a lot of the creatives in that area. And so I played a lot with themes of the ocean. And when I was noticing these connection points between the different musical genres and artistic movements, I was like, yeah, even if we can't physically cross the waters ourselves, our energy still does, apparently. And I mean, even now that we have the internet, we actually are listening to each other um, and what our brothers and sisters are doing across the world, we're listening to that and we're taking it in, remixing it, and spitting it back out. So when I hear artists like Cruel Santino, uh, or Odunzi or Amare or Burna Boy, like I hear them as very clearly, obviously Nigerian artists and very um, true to their heritage on that side of things. But some of their vernacular and the newer music is like, hey, I see what you did there. I see the lingo, I see the influence that you've gotten from what we're doing over here with like modern R&B and B and rap and trap music and stuff like that. So my whole sound of Future Surf is an exploration of what future layers of that connection look like. And then as somebody just super fascinated with the coast and a long time rocket power stand, like I always wanted to surf. So it's like me bundling all of these things into just a way of life that fits for my music. So catching waves, uh, that was like the first joint that I made that made me realize like, okay, I think I'm doing a thing. And my homie Tavis, who's actually down here in the room, I was talking to him and I was like, man, I'm not doing another album. Like I've always been like, I'm gonna do an album, and it's always had big, crazy concepts to it that they just became like emotionally taxing to go through that multi-year process of like sticking to a very specific theme, subject, vision, putting together all of these different pieces. And this is, in web 2 with that. So it's like, trying to get people to understand what you're doing, when the landscape in which you're doing it in isn't even one that fits. Like people kind of wanted you to be and do one thing and feed and spoon feed them piece by piece and convince them of like one sliver of who you are before you can like even get away with showing them the rest. So I didn't want to do albums. And same day that I said that to him, I was like looking, crate digging, finding samples, and I found that sample, and it was just like it just spoke to me. It was the perfect sample. I chopped it immediately, made that beat immediately. Like that song is probably yeah, the song's like 2 years old now at this point. Um, and I have like so many other samples and songs that I started or finished and that are in that similar vein. So I was like, all right, I still don't really want to do an album, but now I have all of these records. And so I broke them out. I broke them out into EPs. Um, and each EP, Surf Noir Volume 1, Volume 2, um, those are like me getting all those records off and having like a Web3 accompaniment to those projects. And
Whew.
it's,
Oh,
yeah.
no, I was just thinking, so my fault. Let me jump in real quick, man,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you are dropping some gems here, and so I love that. We had talked back in Feb just a little bit about what Money Trees is, and hearing you talk about your inspirations and how you've gotten to this point in your approach to the craft is really, really fire. And I opened up by saying you were a pioneer, and I feel like the way that you're looking at even your releases, right, and trying to find something that not necessarily reinvents the wheel, but what the album life cycle, when we think about that in music, doesn't even really exist anymore. And we were having this conversation where an artist body of work, they're expected to drop something and then immediately have this follow up in a couple of months, as opposed to like, when making an album, quote unquote, traditionally, it represents an era in your life. And so that's not something you can churn out and, fit into the way music is currently released. So hearing you explain Future Surf and Surf Noir and the way, especially Catching Waves, how like, this is a song that you've had kind of in tuck for a while now, and it just came about to having the proper way you want to put it out. And I think that's beautiful. I know I jumped in the middle of it, so please continue on. I just wanted to add that.
Nah, you jumped in at the perfect point because, like, I'll just talk. But yeah, Surf Noir is really like that's just the name of like the mythical place that my music transports you to. But with Web3, I'm like allowed to do really wild things that 2 years ago when I said it, like I used to do events. So I was like, yeah, man, I don't really like actually going to these events. I just like making them. So we should stream them or we should have a virtual venue. And my partners were like, that sounds stupid. And now look at where we at. So I'm actually making uh, Surf Noir like the actual virtual version of that with Monaverse, and it's going to be kind of like a cyber surf aesthetic, like a futuristic dystopian uh, beach town, and that'll be kind of where we host little hangouts and whatever else for the future surf community.
Whew. Yeah, before we get off catching waves, the backing vocals in that record, that's a sample? That's what you were saying you chopped up?
Yeah, everything except for the drums and my voice is a sample. Like it was literally just the perfect song already.
Yo, I won't ask, but that sample is fire, and I was gonna say where you got it from. Maybe you can share some of that sauce offline. Um, so it's interesting thinking about catching waves, and now you're saying surf noir is this representation of like a place where your music takes people and that visual element of it. You mentioned earlier that you were watching One Piece on your birthday, and you dropped a video for an anime inspired record around this time last year, Forever, For Never, and that was Yu Yu Hakusho influenced. Would you say that anime is like a guiding? Well, let me. How does anime play into your visual creation and the way that you approach your visuals?
Hey yo, I like this guy. Um yeah, anime and just like film and TV in general, like I would say that anime has been on a tier the past few years. So like I've gotten into a thing where that's mainly what I'm watching, but it's mostly like just good stories and really good character designs across the board inspire me. So um I'm the type of person where like if I watch a really, really good movie, like I'll sit down and make a whole album concept off of that movie. Like uh I had one back in the day that I made off of the Love and Other Drugs movie, and I called it Her and Other Drugs. And so like I would do stuff like that. And with anime, it's like mostly super positive. Like, yeah, people be getting like murked in there, and there's a lot of violence in some of them. But when I boil it down to like a very simple essence, most anime is about like a very how do I put it? Relentless pursuit of your dreams.
I was
And
just gonna say that
yeah,
it's like they're all kind of stem with overcoming these insurmountable odds and dealing
exactly.
with these, extreme life situations and finding a way to come out on top.
Exactly. And it's like you are the content that you consume, you know what I'm saying, to an extent. So if I'm doing nothing but watching and listening and taking in people just like not letting the world shake them and saying like, nah, I'm gonna be the king of pirates. Like I don't care what you got going on or what you got to say about it, but I know what I'm capable of, and that's just all that I take in every day. It just kind of crosses over into my own goals. Like you can't really tell me nothing for real, for real. I have main character energy all the time.
Is that's always been a funny thing to me when people say like, "Oh, you have main character syndrome," or the world doesn't revolve around you. And I don't know, because I'm like, I mean, it kind of does. Like, it's not that you have to treat people in a way that everyone is here to serve you, but your world does revolve around you. And again, the world as a whole may not, but your experiences, what you go through, your emotions, your feelings, they're all valid in regards to your own experiences. So I've never really believed in that, like main character syndrome, because you literally are the main character. Like everyone else in anyone's life is secondary to themselves unless there's ways to experience other people's lives on some Black Mirror shit. But we're not there yet. Could all be in a simulation. I digress. Do not want to start on a tangent there. But I love the way that you look at anime, the way you said something that's really ill where we are in a sense the content that we consume. And it reminds me of when I had like this light bulb moment when the "you are what you eat" sentence really made sense to me. And I'm like, yo, I really am what I eat. Like this energy, this food that I put in me is then broken down and converted into energy and muscle and all these other pieces. So depending on what I put into my body is going to be how my body grows. And when you think about the creative muscles of your brain, depending on the music that you listen to, the videos that you watch, all of that is going to guide your own creative inputs. I tell people all the time that no idea is original. We're all building off of something else that came before us. Some people just do it more blatantly than others. Some people are able to take, really unknown concepts and bring them to the mainstream. Like there's I learned this with Lil Uzi way back when, but there's a guy, Gigi Allen, and they were like, yo, if you look at Lil Uzi and then you look at this Gigi Allen person, they were like, you could see Uzi taking a lot of cues from him. And I was like, yo, I didn't even know about this person. And whether or not Uzi knows, again, I won't say that he does or doesn't, but you can kind of look and see some similarities in style and performance. And so, yeah, I love that you have that opinion and that you're so kind of aware of the content that you're consuming because it's going to help shape the fire shit that you're making here in this space. Hearing your approach to content, what is your recording process like? I know that you mastered Baby Guava's next release, and knowing that you produce, you just talked about how you cut up the samples and you're clearly able to engineer and produce and sing and rap. What is it like for you when you make a record? Do you like doing everything by yourself? Are you preferring going to a studio and working with someone?
I'll definitely do everything by myself, and like I enjoy the solitude of just getting my ideas off and not being inundated with somebody else's opinion. Because like, I mean, even if I'm producing for other people, it doesn't it doesn't always really work out because sometimes I'll be like making the beat, right? And then they'll start doing something that conflicts with like what I've already planned in my head, like two, three steps later. So I really like to, specifically for making beats, I like to kind of just already have them and then just pull up to the situation and play a bunch of vibes. And then if they're like, oh, yeah, can we change this or change that? Then that's where I'm like more comfortable being collaborative. As far as recording and stuff like that, like recording and writing, I is super quick. It's for me, like the process is like warming up to feeling like doing it. But once I sit down to like actually write the verse, that's like 15 minutes. When I record it, depending on like how intricate the arrangement is, it's if it's just straight up rapping, like super quick. If it's like maybe me singing, then I probably will spend, maybe a couple hours doing that because it's not really my bag. Like, so I'm in there like engineering at the same time that I'm singing and like playing with different uh, tones and textures and trying to like find the balance that works. Um, but lately, like for because I'm working on Surf Noir Volume 3 like right now, and there's much nicer studios available to me now. And so I started going to that and like kind of letting the engineer do all the tracking and like letting somebody else help me. And that's been kind of refreshing. Like I have a really fire engineer. I still like my mixes better, but in terms of just like going in and knocking out the record, it has started to become more enjoyable to have somebody else there that I trust their ear to say like, "Hey, you should probably do that again," or maybe try this note. So I'm kind of opening up a little bit to taking cues and stuff like that for people. As far as like collaboration with other artists, like we're not even in the studio or sending anything back and forth if like I haven't already gone through your catalog and like decided that I fuck with it.
To me, it's not that you can't make music completely by yourself. I just think that music is it's like a team sport. It's a collaborative creation. Excuse me. It's a collaborative creative process that gets the best records, like objectively the best. Where if you think a record's hot, maybe it really is hot. If there's 10 people in the room that all think it's hot, there's a good chance that you got a jam there. And for artists, it can become really limiting when you have to constantly be switching gears. Where, okay, cool, you went from producing to recording to mixing to mastering. And it's fire that you're able to do it so quickly. But it's exciting for me to hear that you are starting to have that opening up the doors to further collaboration because I listened to a bunch of your joints and I'm like, yo, this guy is really, really, really talented. And you start to think, okay, well, why does some things work and why don't other things? And there's any number of reasons. But I'm loving your approach to the space. I'm loving the music that you're making. And I'm excited to continually watch that grow. I mentioned earlier, shout out to Lit NFTs, see a few people from the group here in the crowd, but that community has come on Money Trees and it's been fire for me because they're not only providing entertaining interviews, but it's informational. Tons of free game through recommendations and past experiences. But I'm seeing this collective that may not necessarily be an official collective, but it's starting to form. And it excites me because I don't know if that exists in Web3, where there's this Web3 collective of creatives that are all supporting each other on some Odd Future, on some Brockhampton vibes. And just using those as example, not necessarily like to anything more than a reference. But anyway, I'm saying all that to say it's really ill hearing that your recording process is starting to open up because I think that the group that you are a part of, if you all can start collaborating more, there will be some historic art pieces that come out of it, whether it's visually or sonically. So shout out to y'all. Please keep collaborating more. I'm excited to see where that goes. Do you have a favorite DAW? Oh, Muffle, actually, you can feel free to respond to that, but I wanted to ask you about your favorite DAW after.
Yeah, no, I just also wanted to definitely say I love Lit NFT Gang. Shout out to everybody from the gang that's here. Gang gang. Pew pew. Um
Pew pew
nah,
pew pew pew.
I definitely do have some collabs on the books with some of the people in the group and more on the way. And it's like it's really this group of people that has made it more enjoyable for me to like be open about my process. And like Web3 as a whole has kind of like made it more enjoyable for me to just like be vulnerable creatively with people that I just don't know. And I've found it very refreshing. So yeah, that's all I had to say about that. But my
Shout out to
favorite
that.
DAW is Logic.
Word, yeah, simple question. I just I like asking whenever it's somebody that does everything because it's interesting to see like what is best for your workflow. Where for me as an engineer, I've pretty much gotten I record vocals best in Pro Tools, and I think it's just from having to do so many studio sessions where that's the default. But as a producer, I prefer Ableton. But I started off on Logic, and I guess just from like my style of production, I found it more enjoyable to create on Ableton. But Logic to me is the best all-in-one. Whereas I don't think I've ever recorded vocals in Ableton before.
Yo, I keep hearing and seeing like crazy stuff done in Ableton, but when I open it, like every time I open it, I was like, man, do I really want to learn a new DAW? Maybe one of
Ah,
these
man,
days.
I, I like it, man. It's ill. And then, so this is actually a perfect segue because what's fire with Ableton, especially when you're starting out and just getting into like your performance bag, is how easy you're able to port your projects from Ableton or well, create performance versions of your tracks in Ableton through your projects. Where not that you can't do it in Logic, but I highly recommend or advise against people just putting MP3s of their songs up and performing over top of it. At the very least, turn down your vocals a little bit, have points where you don't even have your backing vocals, have different instrumentation versus the song they may know. Like, find ways to spice up that live performance. A lot of artists that I work with have completely different versions of their records that are played when they're on tour versus what you hear on streaming service because it requires different beats in different moments. So with Ableton, it doesn't translate as much with hip hop. It still does. It's amazing for dance and anything house related. Like I work with Gom artist, and it's great having Ableton for that, especially if you don't have a DJ with you. Anyway, I digress. When you think about the performance aspect, it's really really fun being able to flip your own project so smoothly because you have all the pieces there. And then the one thing that I can't that I love with Ableton over Logic, and I can never get right with Logic is like time stretching on beat. Where if you have a sample that I wanted to get, perfectly in time, I would have to use something like Serato DJ and then time it in there through a plugin. And we're Ableton, it happens right on the individual tracks. And so to me, that was a huge thing because I was using so many samples. I felt like I had way more sample control directly with Ableton than I do in Logic. So hearing that you use samples a lot, it's not a huge learning curve. I would recommend checking it out when you've got like a weekend and just seeing if you enjoy it.
When I have this like period of time in between my current employment situation and my next one, that might be my project. But no, I did want to let you know that we got the time stretching in Logic now.
Okay, so yeah, I haven't used Logic for. I still will record sometimes with it, with my cousin. Because anyway, I digress. The last time I was using it was I want to say like actually, do I still have it on my computer? No, this is a new one. I don't know what version it was, but yeah, time stretching was a bitch. So I'm glad that they added that in there. Speaking on performances, you were doing some joints on Discord. Saw you had a Decentraland performance. That is really, really exciting to me. What has been your favorite Web3 related performance that you've done?
Hands down the Decentraland performance. Like that was it was so cool to look back at the recap video and just kind of see everybody with their virtual expressions of their style out on the dance floor, crip walking, hitting a Dougie and whatnot. And like it was special to me because I have some friends that they're not immersed in Web3. Some of the people are also just like not like technology isn't really their thing. But I had multiple people pull up um, despite how they feel about NFTs or Web3 or how they feel about the technology and, make time in their day to come see me do this thing. And I feel like I don't know, like for an in person show, like they were when I was doing them before the panini, like they were it was all the time. So it was like, what's special about this show? And I think that that Decentraland show was just kind of like it was just a moment, like something that I'm gonna remember forever. Like I'm always gonna remember my first metaverse performance, and hopefully people that were there, remember it if that was their first one, and look back and say, yo, the first person that I saw in the metaverse was Cam Murdoch.
Yo, that that's gas. That experience, getting to kind of have that crossover point where some people that are not familiar at all with it have an entry point into seeing your music and seeing what it can look like in the metaverse and in Web3, and just start to help people on board. Where I think that once we can kind of get past the crazy price points and the monkey pictures, as the Instagrammers will say, there's a lot of value being created in this space, and there's a lot of really entertaining shit that's going on that helps supplement. I love you said the Panasonic, the Panini, all the madness we've been having to deal with during this. My go-to is Panoramic, but during this time where we can't all go out and see shows, and I still think that we need to get back to being outside. But in the meantime, there are some pretty good stopgaps that allow you. They're not even stopgaps, just some other layers of performance that allow people to connect with you. Can you talk about how you were able to set up that performance for anyone that's interested in, maybe pursuing it as well?
Yeah, for sure. Big shout out to CJ, aka DJ T Rex, in the space, because I was I was in a random space and they were talking about performing in Decentraland, and how they kind of just got in Web3, saw that, hit the ground running, started DJing. He DJs with his son, which is like super cool to watch. And I just reached out to him, which is also what's cool about being here is like I just hit him up in the DMs like, hey man, could you like give me a couple recommendations of places in Decentraland to just check out? Because if you go and log in to the metaverse, you're like overwhelmed. You're just walking around and it might look cool, but without really like any direction, you don't really know what to do with yourself. And he like immediately hit me back and was like, yo, like hop on right now, and gave me like a whole tour and showed me a bunch of different spots, and then said, hey, you should start here with the Rockin' Unicorns True Band Room, because they're always doing shows. They're always looking for people to do shows, and it's a real cool community. So I reached out to Shelly Van, who is like the community manager for that group, and they got me onboarded, got my show scheduled. I went to a couple shows. Like my first show that I went to, I was just chilling at the crib, vibing so hard, and I was like, wow, I didn't imagine how much this experience would feel like I actually am there and participating in the show. Like watching somebody perform on Twitch is one thing. You got your chat room and all that, but this is it's just a whole other layer of engagement to it.
Way more
So
interactive than Twitch.
yeah, exactly. Like you can make it rain in the club with a button. So um, I would recommend that people that want to get started in that definitely tap into the Rockin' Unicorns, because they're always looking. It's a very friendly community, and they generally just always have people who are pulling up to all of their shows, like from around the world, just to show love and find new artists.
Yo, I pinned up a tweet that has some images from the performance. If there was a recap video tweet that you have and you want to pin it up in the nest, so people could check that out, that would be fire. Because I don't think I saw the recap video. I just saw these images that I had saved. Also, hearing you say the unicorns, that makes a lot more sense. I'm like, oh, unique horns. That's a really good name. And now that I say it out loud, I realize it's a play on words. Anyway, so Ken, you said you're working on Surf Noir Volume 3. Are we not getting a Volume 2?
Yeah, Volume 1 and 2 are both coming out this year.
Okay, okay. But Volume 2 is already done. That's why you're saying you're chopping on 3.
Yeah, exactly. Like Volume 2 is already done. Volume 3, like I had a full album's worth of song concepts and the samples for them and exactly what I was going to do. But then I have a sync agent that was like, hey, man, let me let me A&R for you. And I was kind of all industry types be slowing stuff down. I don't know, but I have like a cool friend relationship with him, so I just was like, all right, I'm gonna ride the wave. Like, send me what you got. And so he went on Facebook and just like did an open call to like his producer community and was like, yo, send me Kanye West graduation type beats. And when I tell you, yo, the stuff that I got in my inbox was like so phenomenal. I couldn't I couldn't not figure out how to work that into it. And so it like volume 3 was initially going to be another EP, but it evolved into a full length ordeal. So y'all might get like some 20 track album with that, to be honest.
Sheesh. Money trees all about planting seeds, planting ideas. We just got some Cam Murdoch alpha. It better not come through at 19, man. You telling me 20? I'm gonna be looking for it.
And this is recorded too.
Yeah, oh, come on, man. This is permanent. We got to get your note on the blockchain. And on that note, no pun intended. This has been a fire conversation, man. I appreciate you blessing us with time, coming off of your drop. Catching Waves from Surf Noir Volume 1 is available on Zora right now. We need to show that some love. Before I let you get out of here, my G, I got two questions I ask everyone that comes on the show. The first question is, what is your seed phrase? And I know. I don't actually want your account recovery key. I think that seed phrase does not make sense to be referred to as a password. It's just not like if you're a newcomer in the space and you hear seed phrase, it doesn't make you think, hey, I need to make sure I keep track of this and don't lose it, or I'm going to lose access to all of my assets. So here on Money Trees, like I said, we're planting seeds, planting ideas. So seed phrase is your saying or a saying, quote, lyric, motto that you live by that embodies your approach to your art, to your career, to your craft. Cam Murdoch, what is your seed phrase?
My seed phrase is the wave is coming.
The Tide Walker himself is telling you all the wave is coming and he will be above it, on it, creating the wave. You're walking on the see. Okay, I'm tangenting again, man. That's fire. Again, like when I saw the Tidewalker, it reminded me, and it was dope seeing your anime influence, where it kind of felt like that, where it was almost like this alter ego, and I was like, yo, how wild would it be if he actually created the Tidewalker character, and that was the first Cam Murdoch anime piece. That's free.
Hey yo,
You can take that one if you ain't think of it already.
hey yo, get out my notes, man.
Listen, man. Oh, sheesh. So yo, the wave is coming. I love that. The second question I have is we're gonna list the one of one Money Trees number 38 note up on Zora after this episode. What is the price going to be?
It's gonna be 0.757 ETH.
Tell me about the 757.
I would love to. The 757 is the area code for Hampton Roads, Virginia, also called Tidewater, Virginia. Um, that's where I'm from. That's where I rep. And 757 also coincidentally is like my angel numbers. I've been seeing 757 multiple times a day for like 3-4 years now. And so when I got into just pricing things, it just, you know, I didn't really want to slow myself down overthinking like, oh, like, what is the value of this? How much should I charge? This and that. I'm just like rocking with my lotto numbers, basically.
I love it, G. I really do. Yo, I want to thank you for coming on today. Again, this conversation has been dope. I can guarantee, at the very least, you just gave a blueprint on how to do your first metaverse performance in Decentraland. If anyone is hearing this and is thinking about it, you have a step by step guide. We got an inside look at Cam's process, the way he approaches his music, the inspiration behind a lot of his creations, and I feel like I learned a bunch, man. And I'm excited to see what you bring to Web3 in this entire space for the rest of 2022 and beyond. I'll be checking out Surf Noirs, all the volumes, because also I know completely unrelated, but Deja Vu is a fucking bop. Like I had to play that twice today. So I think I listened to it and I don't know, just the first time it didn't really connect with me the way it did today. And I'm listening, I'm like, yo, like this is fire. So anyway, that's random. Thank you for coming on, my G. And yeah, hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Yo, thanks so much for having me, man. I thoroughly enjoyed this talk. I definitely, am down to come back for future money trees, and after all of this stuff has come to fruition, and kind of like recap and tell you what's next after that.
Oh, for sure. There is going to be repeat episodes because the whole point of this is for us to make that time capsule, for us to look back and say, okay, what ideas did we have that were quote unquote right or wrong? How have our views changed? And have we accomplished many of the things we set out to do and we said that we would? It's a way for us to, keep ourselves honest and keep pushing forward. So, yeah,
Yeah,
G, I would love to have you back.
yeah. And before we close out, I just wanted to tell you, like, one the thing I'm most excited about for the Surf Noir collections, because it's more than music for me. It's like how I finally have figured out how I can impact people's lives with music. And so what I'm doing with the collections is there's going to be a dynamic NFT that's called a passport, and it's styled like a passport, and it's going to be a zine that updates throughout time. So you buy the passport one time, and you follow my journey through that. So I'll regularly update it as a zine, um, as time progresses. But the cool thing about that is that when you buy one passport, that actually portions of those funds go towards buying a real life US passport for a Black person in America that has never had one. And so what I'm aiming to do is to raise funds to open up the world to different people, because travel, as you probably have guessed, has been like super influential in my journey. And I'm just imagining, like, if I can provide that experience to somebody else, like what they'll go on to create for themselves after that fact. So we're sending people around the world, and then I myself am going to travel some and get my little Anthony Bourdain on, and give y'all a little travel doc.
Yo, Cam, not you hitting us with the Steve Jobs and one more thing and bringing some of the most fire alpha at the end. I'm gonna have to clip this and make sure that everyone hears it. But I love that, G. And yeah, that's fucking incredible. The idea of being able to provide, and especially to people that don't have access to traveling, where the pandemic shut it down, and I didn't realize like how much I actually had been traveling these last few years until I couldn't. And it's made me a lot more conscientious of the privilege and luxury that I had to even be able to travel the way that I did. And knowing that you're incorporating some real world utility, some real world value, something that can actually change the lives of people via art and community on the blockchain. That's incredible. And yeah, I stand by the fact that you are one of the pioneers in this space, because that is a unique idea that I have not heard anybody else bring up or even be focusing on. So shout out to you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Like, I'll end on this last note. Like Lupe Fiasco said, when you come into this space, like, did you improve on the design? Did you do something new?
There it is. All right, y'all. I will catch everyone on the flip side. Shout out to Cam for coming through. This has been fucking great. Peace out, Cam.